It's the late 1990s, and Magic the Gathering's ever-increasing popularity seems to have no end, with worldwide and local tournaments. A pro tour being broadcast on the sports cable network ESPN2, and a rather popular computer game published by Microprose.
The most complex game I have ever seen as far as a computer game is concerned.
The game is being taken seriously by players and non-players alike. So, of course, what's better than the release of a set that takes the game anything but seriously? One that would take the collectible card game created by Richard Garfield and turn it onto its head in the name of silliness. With the idea hatching in the summer of 1997, it wound up being one that launched an entire genre of non-tournament legal cards, and spawned multiple sequels over the years. This is the unhistory of Magic the Gathering.
Joel Mick at the time was the head designer, and Bill Rose, who would later become head designer. Joel and Bill were very good friends. They were both original playtesters of Magic, what we call the Bridge Club. They met Richard Garfield through Bridge. They were the people who worked on Menagerie that became Mirage and Visions. So anyway, they came up with an idea. They said, what if we made a set of cards that you couldn't play in tournaments?
Despite the growing popularity in Magic the Gathering tournaments and tournament-quality cards, tournament play meant to Wizards of the Coast R&D that the cards they came up with had to perform a certain way, align with a certain set of rules, and be designed in a way that players would expect.
There was a lot of debate in the early days, how many new cards per year could be published, how many new sets could be published, and we were trying to have standard, which at the time was, I think, called Type 2, be the premier competitive and emphasized competitive format for Magic. And so first of all, the thought was we don't want to burden players with too many products that they need to purchase in order to get the cards to remain competitive in Type 2, and also that there are certain types of effects that creatively the design teams would come up with, or Mark in particular would come up with, and they'd get shot down because we don't want to have cards that you have to flip or rip into pieces or whatever it might be. So as a way to come out with an additional product, generate some additional revenue, use some ideas that were already floating around inside internally. We gave it to Mark, who was the perfect person, since a lot of the ideas were his to begin with, and Mark is extremely creative.
This new type of set that Mick and Rose had in mind would not fit in the confines of tournament allowable gameplay.
The way Bill describes the unsets now is, it's all the crap that Mark comes up with that he's so excited about that he's going to fight me about publishing it, and it doesn't belong in the normal sets. And so in order to get him to go away and leave me alone and not keep fighting about it, I just tell him, save all that stuff up. The next time you do an unset, you can put it in there.
They were looking to, more or less, upend what Magic cards could be altogether. A set that was unglued.
This was really unlike anything that had come before. This was Magic very much not taking itself seriously at all. This was Magic breaking all of its own rules, referencing things Magic never did before, making jokes, really just unlike anything you'd seen before it.
They came to me, I think I was the most out there of designers, and they said, okay, here's what we're giving you. It's a set that's not played in tournaments. You have no restrictions. Go build what you want to build. And that's really what I was given.
Mark Rosewater is obviously the pioneer of the uncards. They were kind of his baby. He tells the story that Bill Rose, his boss at the time, had an idea for a card set that wasn't tournament legal. They wanted to make a set with no boundaries. You just do whatever you want. We're going to break all the rules, and that's kind of where Unglued came from.
Of course, Even a Magic set with no rules needed at least one rule. And it was a rule that would give this new type of set its identity.
The rule I took upon myself is, if we can make it in a normal Magic set, we should make it a normal Magic set. So what could I do that wouldn't go in a normal Magic set? And I embraced a couple things, and these weren't given to me by them, I just embraced them. One was, look, I'm a comedy writer, that's my background. I'm like, I think we could have a lot of fun with it. And at the time, Magic was a little bit more serious, and so I said, oh, we can make fun of Magic, we can make jokes, and like, we really could do something that's more humorous by nature. And the other thing is, there's just things that, as a designer, I know we can't do. Sometimes I'll make a card and the rules people go, you can't do that. But a lot of those things make sense. It's not that people couldn't play them correctly. It's just, well, the rules don't allow it for a technical reason. So I realized there was just a lot of space to do that. And one of the things I said is, I'm just going to come up with weird and fun things.
The other rule? That the set would have a different border than the normal white and black borders of tournament legal cards. This was to make it instantly recognizable to players, so they don't accidentally include them in their tournament legal decks. In part because of the weirdness that these new Unglued cards would feature.
Die rolling, chickens, just all kinds of craziness packed into a silver bordered package.
To see what was possible for this new set, Mark Rosewater, then simply a member of Wizards R&D, with a set design lead credit to his name, talked to a number of people inside and outside of Wizards, including those who handled printing the game, to find out what was possible that he could work with.
I would learn things that I could do, and then I would come up with ways to use that. And I would talk to all the different people and all the different sections of like, what cool things can we do?
These discussions led to cards being printed in the set such as the BFM, a card so large that it occupies 2 physical cards, thanks to the card frame and artwork being what's known as full bleed. That is, it extends all the way to the card's absolute edge. Another of these discussions occurred with venerated Magic artist Christopher Rush, known for his artwork on cards like Black Lotus and Lightning Bolt. He was also the designer of Magic's iconic card backs and monosymbols. It was a discussion that not only further gave this Unglued set its identity, but also created something that Magic players still enjoy today.
He was telling me this idea he had of, what if for lands, instead of having lands constrained to the box, what if the whole art was the whole card was the art for the land? And I said, that sounds amazing. He goes, yeah, they won't do it. So I was working on, when I got Unglued, I'm like, okay, well, I'm doing the weird set, and no one seems to be stopping me from doing stuff, so I'm like, I'm just going to make them.
In fact, the carte blanche that Rosewater was given allowed him to test a lot of grounds as both a designer and developer of Unglued, with a number of the things he experimented with eventually finding its way into normal, everyday Magic.
It really tested a lot of ground. It's the very first place we ever made tokens. It is the first time we did multiplayer play referencing. First time like BFM inspired Meld down the road. The Infernal Spawn of Evil, it was Forecast. So there's a lot of things that came about because we were messing around and trying things. And then later on, we realized that we could take that wild idea and make it a little less wild and actually use it in normal Magic.
They introduced full art lands, which is such a huge deal. They introduced tokens and packs, and not a lot of people think about that, but that's where tokens and packs debuted, and laid the groundwork for a lot of things that would be built on in the future, right? The fact that Magic is can be silly and fun and doesn't have to be super serious all the time. Unglued laid the pavement for a lot of that.
But Unglued wasn't supposed to be a testing ground for cards that would someday become commonplace within the tournament legal side of the collectible card game. Rather, it was designed to be a fun, silly set packed with jokes, references, and personality, as could be seen on cards like Jester's Sombrero, a play on the Ice Age card Jester's Cap, Elvish Impersonator, thank you very much, and Clam Session, a riff on the phrase Jam Session.
Well, a lot of the stuff, like for example, the clam folk I was just making fun of, we like to make animal folks. I was just trying to make, what's the silliest version we can of an animal folk? So how about a clam? I just thought that was funny. So they have clam heads.
Then there's a story about Heirloom Wrangler, as in Wrangler jeans.
So Heirloom Wrangler, The idea was I was trying to riff on existing Magic things. Land walk was a thing. So for people that aren't old timers, so like forest walk meant if my opponent had a forest, they couldn't block me. And the idea is I'm so sneaky in the forest that I can sneak through and you can't stop me. And there's forest walk and island walk and swamp walk and such. So I was just playing around with that. So I'm like, okay, what other kind of walk can we have? Like, okay, what if I care about the player rather than the environment? So I'm like, okay, well, what if they're wearing blue jeans? A lot of people wear jeans. Like, oh, well, denim walk. So if you're wearing blue jeans, then you can't block. And I thought that was very clever.
A card so clever, apparently, that it caused at least one person facing it to do something they thought was a clever response.
So I'm head judging the very first event, the pre-release was at Gen Con. I'm head judging in a chicken outfit. And I walk by a table and I hear the following expression. Someone says, in response to your declaration of attack, I remove my pants. And I'm like, oh no, what have I done?
Not expecting that, sorry.
Another card, and one very special to Rosewater, is Look at Me, I'm the DCI. DCI, standing for Duelists Convocation International, was the official sanctioning body for competitive play within Magic the Gathering and other games produced by Wizards of the Coast at the time.
We decided that it would be fun to have a children's drawing on one of the cards. And I said, I draw like a child. And so there's a card called Look at Me on the DCI, where I drew it. I want to say like a child, but really I just can't draw. And so I drew with stick figures. And the idea was it's a character who's blindfolded throwing darts at a dartboard, because it's joking about how R&D bans things, so the card lets you ban something. And anyway, I drew that card and I just think like, oh, here's my one chance. Like, when am I ever going to get to illustrate a Magic card? And I thought it was really fun.
It's a piece that Rosewater, as a commissioned artist, actually got paid for, though he never cashed the check.
Originally, they were going to pay me the full fee for, I don't remember what it was, but whatever the full fee for an artist was. And I go, no, I'm not an artist. I go, just give me $1. That's all I need. And so I get called from the payroll and they go, it says here we owe you $1. And I go, yeah, I did art. And so, normally you're going to pay me the full amount, but I said, just pay me $1. And they go, oh, well, can I just give you $1? Can you come down and I'll give you a $1 bill? I go, no, I need the check. And they go, well, why do you need a check? I go, I'm going to frame the check. It's going to, I have the original art. I'm going to frame it with my original art. And they go, you're not going to cash the check? I go, no, it's and to this day, in my den, I have the original art for Look at the DCI framed with the $1 check that I got that I never cashed because I framed it with my art.
Since then, Rosewater has gone on to illustrate a handful of other cards, each with the same skill and expertise as his original.
Since then, I've illustrated like 8, 9, 10 Magic cards. Somebody doesn't understand I can't draw. They keep having me draw cards.
In getting back to Unglued as a set, one question anyone would ask about something with humor involved is, did the jokes land? Well,
but I do enjoy the comedy. So I was very enamored with Unglued when it came out.
Now, while Unglued was the first set in Magic to do many things, including full art basic lands and official tokens, it also made for another first in the game. It's a rather important one that players probably wouldn't even realize, but it's one that also caused Wizards to make a huge miscalculation. One that would put the entire concept in jeopardy from the get-go.
We had never done a supplemental set before. And so we treated it like it was a small set. And the reality, it went over really well. People were really excited. People loved it. We printed too much product only because we had never done a supplemental set before. And so while it was very popular, at Wizards they thought, oh, it's a big failure. Look at all the cards we didn't sell. And the reality was we just printed too much.
I would go into a game store and still find Unglued. I remember seeing it behind the counter and being like, ooh, what is that? And they're like, it's this crazy set with all kinds of stuff that doesn't follow the normal rules. And no one wants to buy it.
Despite the unsold inventory, though, the response to Unglued was positive enough to warrant a follow-up set, Unglued 2, the obligatory sequel.
Right away, we planned a second unset, and so I worked on it. It had a poison theme. In fact, all the poison were vegetables, and anyway, it had a lot of. I learned a lot of things from the first one into the second one. But then the set, they had printed too much, and they later figured out that they had a bunch of stuff that they had to destroy. We had overprinted it, and so then they canceled the product.
there's a business element to it, right? If the distributors and the retailers are stuck with unglued product, then it's going to be harder to sell in a sequel product until, kind of 5 years have gone past and everybody's sort of forgotten the situation, and they've had a lot of other products pass through, and Wizards has managed the print runs properly and so forth.
And it's not like the sequel had been cancelled while it was still in the planning stages. In fact, it was rather far into development when Wizards decided to give the set the axe.
Art had been done, like it is the farthest along I've ever seen us kill anything, but they decided that it just didn't make sense, and so Unglued 2 would never happen.
Despite the cancellation, there was an aspect of Unglued 2 that would eventually find its way into black-bordered, tournament-legal Magic sets.
In Unglued 2, because BFM had been so popular, I decided to do the opposite. So instead of one card so big it's on 2 cards, what if you had one card so small that 2 cards fit on the card? And when Unglued 2 went away, I really liked that idea. So in Invasion, I pitched it to Bill Rose, who is the lead of Invasion, and that is where the split cards came from.
But as for Magic the Gathering's Un-experiment, that was that. At least, it was for a time. Eight years later, with Wizards of the Coast now under the umbrella of the toy and game mega giant Hasbro, Wizards, thanks to some prodding from the inside, decided that it was time to give Magic's Unsets another go. And this time, Wizards wanted to lean in even more to the silliness and crassness that could be had.
The brand team asked me to be a little bit sillier, so I was actually asked to be more sophomoric. That's why there's ass jokes in it and the donkey folk and such.
It was a decision by Wizards that would wind up finding 2004's Unhinged to be the butt of Magic's Un-jokes. And that's in part due to both Magic being a game that's considered to be designed for ages 13 and up, as well as the set having cards named Dumbass, Fat Ass, and City of Ass.
We always defined it as being donkeys, and so in our definition, it's sort of like, well, we're talking about donkeys. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And so anyway, it was us being a little bit more sophomore. I was asked to be sophomoric, so I was more sophomoric.
I think it was just representative of kind of the zeitgeist at the time. The creative team, as it were, behind that set, kind of doing the humor that they felt appropriate to the audience at the time. Maybe not something we do today, but it is what it is, right?
I remember my mom was not very keen on the donkey theme in the set, so maybe lessons learned there. It was a different kind of humor. But I think, as a player, I really enjoyed it and I had a fun time.
But in Unhinged, the issue of possible poor taste didn't start and end with the wink wink butt jokes. The set also had a number of other references that could be considered within the same vein, such as with the rather risque card art for Red Hot Hottie, which pays tribute to the original artwork for Fire Elemental, Old Fogey, which pokes fun at older Magic players, and Necro Impotence, which is a parody of the Ice Age card Necropotence, or is it Necropotence, complete with a card name and artwork that you might expect to find as part of a nerdy Viagra ad.
It was very divisive, and there were definitely people who did not like that we did that. That Magic was kind of, for some people, pushing humor they didn't like, and I get that.
The player base responded with curiosity about the set, but without the same enthusiasm as they had the original Unset, despite the progenitors overprinting. Wizards employee Matt Tabak, who was a player at the time, explains his experience with Unhinged.
I enjoyed it to some degree. I won't say I bought, a ton of it. I, bought a good number of it. We played it a few times. Wasn't totally in my wheelhouse, although I did appreciate a lot of the jokes therein.
But when all is said and done with Unhinged, it simply wasn't the unsequel that it could have been.
The sadness for me of Unhinged is, it is, of the unsets especially, but even just of sets I worked on, I'm kind of most disappointed. The main mechanic of it, gotcha, I think is a huge mistake. So idea of gotcha is if you do a certain action, then you can get the card back from the graveyard. But what it made people do is, well, if I say the wrong thing, I'll be in trouble. So I'll just stop talking. And like, no, that's not. The whole point of the unsaid is not to make people shut down and not do anything. And so the mechanic really fought against it. Unhinged also had fractions. It turns out people are horrible with fractions. And so, okay, I hit you for 3.5 damage. People couldn't figure that out. It took a long time for people to figure that out. And we also had an artist theme that didn't quite pan out. So like Unhinged to me is, I tried a lot of different things and I don't get to do unsets very often. So the fact that a lot of them, like, it just didn't work as well as I like. There's fun individual cards in the set, obviously, but a lot of the mechanics didn't pan out. It just was a missed opportunity. And so I still, to this day, Unhinged is the unset that kind of went wrong in my mind.
It went wrong enough that Wizards of the Coast did not release another unset for more than a decade.
After Unhinged happened, Unhinged didn't go so great. I mean, I made some mistakes openly there. And so the idea was, okay, that's it. The unsets are dead. It took me and a bunch of other people, most of which were named Mark, to finally get us back on.
The set that would bring Magic's unsets back into production was one that would become known as Unstable.
When I came into Wizards in 2011, they were already talking about Unstable. They've been working on this thing for ages. Mark Rosewater wanted the third unset, and he had a whole team working with him. And it had been talked about in the background for a while until eventually, I think maybe around 2012, maybe 2013, it kicked off into a full team. It had been rumored, bandied around for a long time.
We said, you know what? There's a lot of experimental things going on that would be valuable if we spent some time and energy understanding them. There's new digital printing and all this stuff. Like, what if we made a set that really leaned into that, and that would be an opportunity for us to do this thing that there is an audience. We thought we pitched that there's an audience that really did like the unsets, and it'll give us a chance to test some new technology.
Ironically, by the time Unstable went to print, that technology simply wasn't ready.
The set ended up really not being that. Like, one of the ideas originally was we were going to have different variants of cards. There's a little bit of that. We made the cards with the same name. But originally the idea was we're going to have digital printing, and like people would have different versions of cards, and it was going to be a really radical idea out there, but that didn't pan off.
Even more ironically, due to the nature of how the game has progressed over the years, the folks behind Unstable were now taking into consideration structure and the rules of the game more than Unglued would have by a measurable amount.
We're still in this area where, we're not beholden to the comp rules, but we still want to make sure that we're explaining to players, who are at their kitchen tables or at their game stores. They're going to be playing in events. We want to give them information on how these cards play, because we're kind of playing fast and loose with comp rules and how Magic games usually go. But now we're talking about all these unusually templated cards with things that are far beyond anything they've ever seen.
Despite this layer of additional structure, or perhaps because of it, was the introduction of a new mechanic, Augment. One that still harkens back to the Unglued card, BFM.
When we had made BFM, that really inspired us to try to figure out, are there ways to connect cards together? Now, BFM, obviously there's a left side and a right side, and one of the ideas is there a more modular system? Could you have like any left side can go with any right side? And so we were playing around with that, and the idea I finally came across with is, okay, what if you had a creature that you could expand it with a certain type of expandings, that you could augment it? But there always was a host, and that host was always the same. And then we figured out if the host had an enter the battlefield effect, and you augmented it, instead of enter the battlefield, or it now enters, but at the time enter the battlefield, you could change it to something else. It also had a very weird visual style that was necessary to make it work, and I just didn't think normal Magic would do that. I mean, at the time it wouldn't do that, and so anyway, it just was a cool, innovative idea, a mechanic that I really liked, that there was a way to do it fun and silly, that there wasn't really a serious way to do it. So I'm like, okay, let's put it in the fun and silly set.
Augment wasn't the only thing that Rosewater and friends tried out for the set. In fact, it was just one of many, most of which did not make the cut before the team decided on the set's other main mechanic.
And they tried all kinds of wild mechanics. I remember they had a scratch-off mechanic where you could you didn't know what your card did before you played it. But eventually I think they honed it on contraptions, and that really led to a really unique mechanic that was kind of a fun outside the game experience based on, of course, the Future Sight card Steamflogger Boss.
The first card reprint ever in an unset, the card itself was set up to be a joke.
So we were making Future Sight, and in Future Sight we made a card called Steam Flogger Boss. And the idea of Steam Flogger Boss was, let's just throw words that mean nothing. Let's just, like, we were doing future cards, and a lot of stuff we were doing things we might actually do. But the idea of this was, we're just gonna make up words. Then we eventually came up with a symbol contraption. And the idea was, what does that mean? You know, it said like it said riggers. You help riggers and you assemble a contraption a second time. And like, what does that mean? It didn't mean anything. And that was the joke. The joke was, it doesn't mean anything.
That is, it was a good gag until Magic's Aaron Forsyth wrote an article exposing the joke, which caused players to want it to mean something.
So I spent a lot of time and energy. I know I tried in Kaladesh to make contraptions, and what I found was it really wanted something really wild and wacky, and that every time I tried to make it, it just didn't feel like it lived up to contraptions.
Which is how Wizards found the card and the contraptions the card cares about a home in Unstable.
When I was working on Unstable, the original idea was it was like a steampunk inventor world, and like, okay, inventor world, like that seems like the perfect place to do it. And I wanted to do factions, so like, oh, we can do a goblin faction, and they can be the steam floggers. And because I didn't have the restrictions of normal Magic, that I could make a whole deck of contraptions and like I could do a much more elaborate system, which I ended up doing, and it just allowed it to really live up to the idea of what contraptions are.
I'll admit, I was originally not a fan of paying that joke off. I thought it would be funnier to just forever, like the joke was that contraptions were not a thing. Right? And I thought that was the best execution of that joke. But once we were set on that path, I was committed to like making contraptions. You know, the wording of Steam Flogger Boss kind of set some rules for what contraptions were going to be. So once we were committed to making them, we had to make them right.
Beyond the cards and mechanics, Unstable was also the first unset designed to be drafted, making it stand out a bit compared to its predecessors.
Unglued was not built for draft, Unhinged was not really built for draft, but Unstable was really built for draft. And the draft was actually quite fun, and a lot of folks really loved playing it. I thought it leaned into the right kind of humor, and the team did a phenomenal job on it.
Unstable is probably the set that got the best response of any of the unsets. It went to like 4 printings. I think it had a really, really fun limited environment. It was really seen internally as a big hit. Something that the previous unsets had not been seen as. And so that is what got us greenlit the next one so fast, was that was seen as a hit.
3 years after the release of Unstable was Unsanctioned, a ready-to-play box set containing reprints of previously released Uncards, along with 16 new ones unique to the product. Then, just 2 years after Unsanctioned, Unfinity launched in October of 2022. And it's a set that is out of this world, literally.
We're going to space!
It was the first time that Un had really built up like this really wild carnival world, where Magic is what the carnival is built on.
It was a very fun idea of just this sort of space carnival amusement park circus that just, what we could go to the top, we could play up comedy. The running joke of the whole thing was, it was fun but crazy dangerous.
As is the norm for unsets, Unfinity introduced some new and unconventional mechanics and concepts to the game of Magic. One of them, attractions, leaned heavily into the amusement park carnival theme.
Originally, the way attractions worked was when you opened an attraction, it went to the midway and anybody could go there. But making mechanics work where I play something that someone else can use, it's just really hard to balance that. So in the end, we did sort of a variant on something we had done with contraptions where there was a separate deck and you used your attractions and they used their attractions, but we made a system where there was a die rolling element to it.
Another key component in Unfinity was the use of stickers.
The idea I was really fascinated by was stickers. I had seen some sticker stuff in other games, and I really wanted to sort of take Magic's take on stickers. So we said, okay, we'll make stickers, but you put them on, then you take them off. And we made sure that they would come off, for example. That was important. We didn't want to harm your card in any way.
Stickers, though, became a controversial part of the set amongst players, mainly because of one of the other controversial aspects of the set.
Notably, silver borders went away, and it was replaced with acorns. and in some cases, no acorns. A very exciting new standard that not everyone loved.
As for why Wizards decided to make such a bold move with the removal of silver borders from uncards.
In between us making Unstable and us making Unfinity, the first Dungeons & Dragons set came out, Adventures in the Forgotten Realm, and they used die rolling in a black bordered set. And so I was in a weird case where I had silver bordered cards that you couldn't use in tournaments, except there were cards that already existed that you could use in tournaments that had the same mechanic. And we were so far along, and die rolling was so core to what we were doing, I couldn't just change the cards. So I'm like, well, can we just let people play, like the cards that don't cause a problem, can we just let people play with it? And so we decided that we would do that, but that decision happened late in the process.
To differentiate which Unfinity cards were and were not okay for use in sanctioned play, Wizards put an acorn-shaped holographic symbol on the bottom of many of the cards.
The acorn allowed us to mix and match what cards were sort of silver board in the sense that you can't play them in tournaments, and which ones were now legal in tournaments. And one of the big knocks against the unsets had been that a lot of people wanted to play them in Commander, and they played in play groups where their friends wouldn't let them rule zero it in. And so I really was sympathetic to, look, if I can give you wacky things that aren't causing a problem, let me let you play with those. With 2020 hindsight, if I could do things again, and we could do it from the beginning, I wish they had silver borders. That's a lesson from that. Despite these issues, Unfinity went on to becoming the best-selling unset ever released for Magic. I really love Unfinity. There were some challenges. The stickers didn't quite work quite the way we thought because we wanted to make sure that they didn't harm the card, but they ended up not sticking well and didn't re-stick as well as we wanted. And there were a lot of logistical things that, look, we didn't get the cards till they were printed and we got them, so that wasn't something we got a chance to play test with. So. But anyway, I think Unfinity did a lot of fun things. I think it's a really fun set. If you've never drafted Unfinity, it is a very fun draft environment. I'm really proud of it. But what does the future hold for Magic's unsets? Between the sheer amount of alternative Magic cards from Universes Beyond sets and Secret Lair releases, all with their own personality and character, is there a place for more un-Magic? The nature of what sets are has changed a lot. We're cutting back on the number of sets we're making, and the bar of what those sets are has gotten so high. Universes Beyond is a runaway wild success, but in some ways, it becomes harder to do things like an unset. That becomes harder.
I think it's its own niche, right? I think what it provides, you're not going to find a licensed property that's going to let you go wild creatively in the way that unsets have traditionally done.
I think Magic might be at its best when we don't take ourselves overly seriously. I think Magic has a wide audience that I think has a good sense of humor. So I would like to think that not necessarily, I won't say uncards specifically, but I think there is potential out there for a product in that vein. I don't know exactly how we do that. It might be uncards, it might be an evolution of that idea, but I don't think everything has to be a serious tournament level set. Maybe it does, I don't know. There's a lot of people out there. I've been told many, many times that this is it. This is the end of the unsets, the end of uncards, and I keep trying to find a way. So I'm not giving up hope of figuring out a way to do more unsets. I'm not saying right now that I've solved that problem, but I've not given up the hope. I know there's an audience that really enjoys them, and so I want to keep that alive. I'm looking for ways to do it. But I wish I could say in the next Sunset comes out next year. That is not true. So, but I've not given up the hope, and I know there are unfans out there, and so I've many times before been in the place where I'm like, and we're never doing that again. So I will figure out a way if I can. So I'm not giving up the hope. I mean, you're gonna cut things, right? You can just cut this.
How did you come to want to create a video about the unsets in particular?
This is where you'll actually get something good.
Yeah, if you could just remind me of some cards that are in that set, that'd be nice. Do you have any other thoughts of working on Unstable? I don't remember.
JLM Grifter is me in Unglued. Not sure it's something to be proud of. Not sure why they have me grifting a little girl with 3-card Monty, but.
And originally, it didn't assemble a contraption. Originally, what did it originally? I'm trying to remember this. Give me a second.
Speaking of torture, Golden Knights preseason hockey.
Following up on Unstable, I know Mark Rosewater. Following up on Unstable.
I can't remember.
Rosewater will probably have a very long, much more detailed answer. And he could probably tell you way more about the future. I look forward to seeing his answer to this question. So I'm gonna watch how you cut this together. And in fact, right about now, you should cut to him.
Wait, real quickly, do you guys understand the context of what I just said? There's a card that says if you're wearing blue jeans, you can't be blocked. So people would say, I'm taking off my blue jeans, because now I'm not wearing blue jeans. They had underwear on, but that is what was going on.
Now, if you asked me about future card sets that I'm not allowed to talk about, I could talk about them, but then I would get in trouble, and the people standing behind you would throw juice bottles at my head.
So your 10 favorite specific cards from the upcoming Star Trek set.
Yeah, let me tell you, of all the sets that I'm working on right now that we have not announced, let me tell you what my favorite one is. It's actually